Thomas A. Edison's forebears lived in New Jersey until their loyalty to the British Crown during the American Revolution drove them to Nova Scotia, Canada. From there, later generations relocated to Ontario and fought the Americans in the War of 1812. Edison's mother, Nancy Elliott, was originally from New York until her family moved to Vienna, Canada, where she met Sam Edison, whom she later married. When Sam became involved in an unsuccessful insurrection in Ontario in the 1830s, he was forced to flee to the United States, and in 1839 they made their home in Milan, Ohio. Thomas Alva Edison was born to Sam and Nancy on February 11, 1847, in Milan, Ohio. Known as Al in his youth, Edison was the youngest of 7 children, 4 of whom survived to adulthood. Edison tended to be in poor health when young. Al not only played hard, but also worked hard. At the age of 12 he sold fruit, snacks and newspapers on a train as a news butcher. He even printed his own newspaper, the Grand Trunk Herald, on a moving train. At 15, Al roamed the country as a tramp telegrapher. Using a kind of alphabet called Morse code, he sent and received messages over the telegraph. Even though he was already losing his hearing, he could still hear the clicks of the telegraph. Next 7 years he moved over a dozen times, often working all night, taking messages for trains and even for the Union Army during the Civil War. His spare time, he took things apart to see how they worked. Finally, he decided to invent things himself. After the failure of his first invention, the electric vote recorder, Edison moved to New York City. There he improved the way the stock ticker worked. This was his big break. By 1870 his company was manufacturing his stock ticker in Newark, New Jersey. He also improved the telegraph, making it send up to 4 messages at once. During this time he married his first wife, Mary Stilwell, on Christmas Day, 1871. They had 3 children, Marion, Thomas Jr., and William. Wanting a quieter spot to do more inventing, Edison moved from Newark to Menlo Park, New Jersey, in 1876. There he built his most famous laboratory. He was not alone in Menlo Park. Edison hired muckers to help him out. These muckers came from all over the world to make their fortune in America. The phonograph was the first machine that could record the sound of someone's voice and play it back. In 1877, Edison recorded the first words on a piece of tinfoil. He recited the nursery rhyme "Mary Had a Little Lamb," and the phonograph played the words back to him. Starting in 1878, Edison and the muckers worked on one of his greatest achievements. The electric light system was more than just the incandescent lamp. Edison also designed a system of power plants that make the electrical power in the wiring that brings it to people's homes. In 1885, 1 year after his first wife died, Edison met a 20-year-old woman named Mina Miller. Her father was an inventor in Edison's home state of Ohio. Edison taught her Morse code. Even when others were around, the couple could talk to each other secretly. One day he tapped a question into her hand. Mina Edison wanted a home in the country, so Edison bought Glenmont, a 29-room home with 13½ acres of land in West Orange, New Jersey. They married on February 24, 1886 and had 3 children, Madeline, Charles, and Theodore. A year later, Edison built a laboratory in West Orange that was 10 times larger than the one in Menlo Park. In fact, it was one of the largest laboratories in the world. Almost as famous as Edison himself. Well into the night, laboratory buildings glowed with electric light while the wizard and his muckers. Edison's dreams into inventions. Once, the chief mucker worked for 3 days straight, taking only short naps. Edison earned half of his 1,093 patents in West Orange. Edison did more than invent. Here Edison could think of ways to make a better phonograph, for example, build it with his muckers. Not only did Edison improve the phonograph several times, but he also worked on X-rays, storage batteries, and the first talking doll. The inventions made here changed the way we live even today. He worked here until his death on October 18, 1931, at the age of 84. By that time, everyone had heard of the wizard and looked up to him. The whole world called him a genius. But he knew that having a good idea was not enough. It takes hard work to make dreams into reality. That is why Edison liked to say, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration.